This video is sponsored by the Luminous Lore Kickstarter. How do you bring the world of dreams into D&D? That was the challenge facing the folks behind the Kickstarter for the Luminous Lore setting guide and art book. See, this project is all about presenting a D&D setting where dreams have influence over the world, which essentially means you're taking the most soft magic system of all time, imagination and dreams, and trying to present it in a very concrete system like D&D 5e. So let's see how they did. First of all, anytime you're dealing with dreams in any fictional context, you have to decide which aspect of dreaming you're going to focus on, because it's extremely difficult to try to tackle everything. For example, Inception and The Matrix both ask questions about how do you know whether or not you're still dreaming or if you've woken up, but Inception lingers more on the unreality of time in dreams, whereas The Matrix focuses on being able to do things you can't do in the real world. And I mean, I guess technically those movies are also about somebody who dreams about flying. I never really thought of it that way, but I guess that's exactly what those movies are about. However, neither of them spend very much time on the stream of consciousness non-sequiturs we might get from something like Restless, the season 4 finale of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Sure, Inception has some deliberately implausible environments, but that episode of Buffy lingers on scenes giving way to other scenes and moments that make no sense, yet you completely accept while you're dreaming. So, which aspects of dreaming did the folks behind Luminous Lore linger on? Well, they chose to capture the magic of creation and imagination. As in, if you imagine something could happen, it could actually literally manifest in the world of Luminous Lore. However, that presents kind of a big design challenge, doesn't it? Because it's one thing to play a pretty loose game where you can add details like spontaneous creation. But D&D is a game where you gain power over the course of 20 levels, and where balance matters a whole lot. So you can't just add, because I said so it happens, mechanics into this game. That's not how it works. But you can add subclasses, spells, and ancestries, which is what these designers are doing. Now I should say, I haven't seen all of the materials in this book. The Kickstarter campaign promises more than 10 subclasses, and the preview document only includes 5. But I still think it's interesting to look at what has been presented and see how they bring imagination to life. As a reminder, this video is sponsored, but it does represent my honest opinions of Luminous Lore and my genuine reactions to this material. My goal is to show off the things that I think are cool and point to the things that may or may not be right for you, so you can know whether or not you'd like to support this Kickstarter. If you would like to back the project, there's a link in the description, so check it out and see how you can bring the world of dreams into your D&D game. Thank you so much to the Luminous Lore Kickstarter for sponsoring this video. Now, dream magic is divided into 3 categories: Captuveries, Chosen, and Luminary. And each of these new subclasses provided falls into one of these 3 categories. For example, the Captuveries subclasses include a Warlock, a Bard, and a Rogue, and they all have a specific trait in common. As they reach higher levels, they can use magic to capture creatures in some sort of sketchbook, literally imprisoning them over the course of a couple of rounds. This is essentially why I believe the supplement is referred to as an art book, not just because there are a ton of lovely illustrations, including some full-page digital paintings of settings or monsters or magic items or whatever, but also because there's an artistic bent to the content within, including these subclasses. And let's get the obvious out of the way. This is the most Warlock thing I've ever heard of. The Master of Dreams Warlock can also conjure a companion of CR 5 or lower, and can eventually draw self-portraits or illustrations of allies that the Warlock can later use to heal someone. That one kind of reminds me of the Portrait of Dorian Gray, which, again, makes perfect sense. If your Warlock has spooky art powers, that is a story you could draw from. The Bard subclass is the Scholar of the Artisan, and again is specifically designed around sketching and drawing. Instead of using musical instruments, you can get proficiency in painter's tools or calligraphy supplies. Again, you can store some non-magical objects in a book and potentially creatures at higher levels. You can also cast Create and Destroy Water, and it works on any liquid. Although at my tables I'd probably specify it can't do damage, like you can't create acid or something like that. It also gives you access to some summoning spells, although unlike the way most of these spells are written in the core book, you can only summon 1 creature, so you're not getting the completely overwhelming impact these spells can actually have on the action economy in the normal version of the game. And the Capstone ability allows you to capture a structure or building, or a chunk of ground underneath the monster's feet. And I'll be honest, I think that's the way most players are going to use it if they get to 20th level with this subclass. And then there's the Captivating Rogue, and it looks like all of the subclass features are more or less inspired by the term captivating. So you get the ability to use disguises or make forgeries and mimic accents, but you can also draw in your sketchbook and capture an item. Later on, you can capture locks off of doors or chests, effectively unlocking things by stealing the locks away. At 13th level, you can capture a limb off of an enemy, putting it into your book, and bloodlessly removing it from your opponent. And at higher levels, you can capture the image of a specific location, and then you and your team can actually teleport to that location. I kind of picture this like jumping into a painting, like the Portrait of the Dawn Treader. And honestly, even if I never play these characters because I don't play a lot of rogues or warlocks, the idea of an art-themed wizard would be really inspiring. I love this idea of your spellbook being a sketchbook and being able to cast Teleportation Circle by leaping into artwork you've drawn. That's a really interesting and evocative concept. Then there's the Chosen. The idea behind the Chosen is that they're able to use more Dream artifacts than the other player classes, at least with fewer side effects. Dream artifacts are magic items specific to this setting, and I definitely appreciate that this book is honest that really, your martial characters probably do need more magic items than your other characters, just in order to keep up with the power scaling in the game. In this preview packet, we get the Barbarian and the Fighter Chosen. The Barbarian is interesting, because the Barbarian Chosen path gives you the ability to become one with a set of armor and a weapon, and so you can either gain a boost to your armor, or add dream magic to your weapon attacks. As you level up, you get better at using armor and channeling magic into your weapons. There's actually a lot of Paladin influence in this Barbarian, because you can create a character who has the rage of the Barbarian, but some of the aesthetics of an armored warrior. Then there's also the Scholar of the Chosen Fighter, who can cast Identify and Detect Magic, and also has some dream magic that can be spent on abilities, like gaining temporary hit points, charging weapons to do extra bursts of damage, and adding a die to a saving throw or an initiative roll, things like that. At even higher levels, the Scholar of the Chosen can attune to magic items much faster than normal, 10 minutes at 10th level and 1 minute at 18th level. Around these levels, the Scholar of the Chosen also gains advantage on saves against cursed magic items, although this isn't the case for legendary magic items up until 18th level, and I think that's a good way to balance that ability. And the basic thrust of this subclass is that this fighter can attune to magic items a lot better than anyone else in the game, and I think these mechanics represent that idea pretty well. This is obviously dependent on your GM actually giving you a lot of magic items, so that would be something to talk through with your GM. Because unlike how the rest of the 5e is designed, this subclass, and this product overall, does assume your characters will interact with magic items at least semi-frequently. Now, the last category of dream magic are the Luminaries, and these subclasses aren't in the preview packet, but I think we can take an educated guess and assume that there will be a Luminary Wizard subclass, and I would also anticipate a Sorcerer, maybe a Druid, because Luminaries are all about bringing the things they imagine to life. And even without the use of the subclasses, we can see how you can get that concept to add some really fun flavor to the way you roleplay those classes specifically. Imagine a druid who transforms into wild shapes or conjures animals by pulling drawings from scrolls. Imagine a wizard who has pages of artwork of mythic figures casting spells, and they mimic those movements when they cast the spells themselves. The flavor for dream magic includes magical writing that shifts across the body like tattoos, so imagine a sorcerer who's just tapping into that sort of creative potential without even trying. I actually made a character like that before, a few years ago for this channel, a sorcerer with magical tattoos that represented his spells. So connecting that to dream magic would basically be a no-brainer. However, there's something else interesting to note about Luminaries. Well, two things. The first is that the Bard subclass description tells us that only a Luminary can release an object or a creature that has been transcribed by a Captuvery. This means that in order to get the full impact of the Bard, Warlock, or Rogue subclasses presented in the book, you really need to play the game with someone playing one of the Luminary subclasses as well. Now that might not be your cup of tea, and I certainly won't deny that it's very unusual design for 5th edition. It's not how the classes and subclasses in this game are typically designed. Normally, everybody pretty much has to be able to operate independently, since you aren't going to know what other classes and characters will make up your party. So it seems like these are not subclasses that you could easily port into another game where everyone else is playing subclasses from Xanathars or Tasha's or the Player's Handbook. So the assumption this book makes is that if you're going to play one of these subclasses, everyone in the group will do so. They're all going to be playing with dream magic. And at first glance, it might seem like that's kind of limiting. After all, what if you don't necessarily want to play in this specific campaign setting? Well, that's where the nature of this campaign setting becomes very useful. Because the world of this book, Equatoria, has portals to many other worlds, so you could easily imagine connecting these subclasses to a game that does take place in the Forgotten Realms or Eberron, and then have the characters pass in and out of Equatoria. Or, bear with me, you could play characters from our world. Because the book tells us that some of the portals link Equatoria to Earth. And in fact, it even suggests that some of the ancient gods of mythology weren't gods, but were instead people who possessed dream magic. It connects the Chosen to legendary warriors in history, like the Spartans. It name drops Zeus as someone who was probably just a powerful luminary who could cast lightning bolts. Thankfully, the book doesn't suggest that these spellcasters from Equatoria built pyramids or anything. It's not the ancient aliens theory. But this is something that you could explore further in your own games. I run a couple of Curse of Strahd campaigns where the characters are kids from our world who are pulled into the world of Barovia, like in the D&D cartoon or the Chronicles of Narnia. But one of the challenges is justifying how these ordinary kids are suddenly able to cast the spells that come with certain classes or pick up the magical powers that come from their subclasses. But if you play in the world of Equatoria, the very nature of dream magic helps you jump that hurdle pretty easily, because it's just kind of how magic works in this setting. And I honestly think this setting lends itself especially well to a Narnia-style campaign where the characters come from our world and they debate whether they're just dreaming or whether they've actually entered another world. So I do recommend you check out Luminous Lore. It's on Kickstarter until July 3rd, and if it seems like something you might enjoy, then you should give it a try. In the meantime, leave me a comment, let me know what you think of what you've heard so far. Are you going to take the world of Luminous Lore for a spin in your game? Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back next week on Thursday with a new video, so make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you can be notified whenever I drop a new video. Consider supporting my channel by joining my Patreon or becoming a YouTube member, or just making a donation through Ko-fi. You can also join my Discord server and hang out with other nerds like us, and sign up for my newsletter to catch my latest updates. Make sure to check out this video. It's all about what you keep behind your DM screen, and you can see me rethinking what I bring to my own games and how to organize it better. Until next time, play fair and have fun.